What you have anything to say about Ardra King?
Well, no, I mean you pretty much said it all. I mean, but I know a lot of people with some heavy Ardra influences and um very very interesting people. Some people may, and I'm not saying it. I don't mean this in a actual mental health diagnosis perspective, but a lot of times, a lot of people may refer to these people as crazy, right? That person, that person is
Hey,
crazy. You never know
hey,
what you.
hey, I'm serious. You're right on the money.
Right.
It can be one of those energies, areas of the zodiac that can literally cause you to be a little off.
Mm-hmm.
And here's the thing: to do comedy in front of thousands, I mean, of people, now millions, of course, because of his status and his comical prowess.
Yeah, you
You
gotta be a
have to
little,
be a little special. Yeah, you got
right.
to, something got to be a little to the left, right? A little to the right, right? It's got to
What
be there.
one of our teacher, one of our teachers, he always he makes a comment that when you're talented, you want to be talented, or you want that energy to be extreme, just to right at the point before you're crazy, right before crazy,
Well, genius
just
and crazy is usually
right on
borderline.
the edge of crazy and
Yeah,
genius.
yeah. Genius is usually borderline crazy.
Right,
That is a reality,
right,
right? It's true, folks, right? There's some truth. There's some very real truth to that, right? It's a thin line, right? And he walks that razor's edge, right? I
people thought he
mean,
jumped over the edge for a second, right?
well, I mean, considering right what we're about to talk about here in these dashes, it makes sense, right? It really
Right,
does make sense. Watch what we
right.
talk about, right? So, and he's got K2 with the moon. Come on now, K2 with the moon already can set you a little, you know, and then Saturn's there with it, which is also serious but yet detached, right? That's a lot. So Dave fits right into where he fits right into his niche, right into his. I mean, his calling card is one that when you say his name, right, it brings an immediate thought of something that's funny or something that he might have said or done that you watched or seen.
Right.
So you know, look at what he's born into, right? I mean, if you check the Vimshatari Dasha, right before or right after he's born, right when he's born into a Rahu Dasha, right? The very end of it, very last uh, portion of that Rahu Dasha, he's there,
Right.
right? So, and what I teach in my classes is that when you look at a Dasha, when you look at life, you know, life is kind of like you know, it's what was planted first, what the seed of your existence is, and what your seed, let's say, what the seed of your seed of your birth. I'm not gonna say incarnation, right? The seed of your reintroduction into this plane is just like anything else. When that seed is planted, it grows, right, around and from that seed and sprouts out into the rest of your life through the other dasha sequences. But Rahu is the beginning, right? So it's interesting, right, to see how he would have started in a dasha that rules all three of those planets in Ardra.
Right.
Very interesting, right? Um, because if you look at his moon, it's 19 degrees 1 minute. 1 degree over, he's touching on. a new nakshatra. So he only has a sliver of Rahu left when he's born, just a sliver. But that sliver is enough to set the scene, to set the jump off, right? To put things in motion, to touch, as they say, the butterfly effect, right?
Right. And he's born in a Rahu Moon dasha.
Immediately after, yeah, he is actually. You're right. It that's thank you for pointing that out, brother. Thank you for that. That you couldn't got any better than that. Rahu Moon, right? So the moon, which is in the nakshatra of Rahu, and he's born in a Rahu Moon dasha. So he's already born, right, to set the stage for right that rebellious mind,
Right.
that thinking outside of or around the box type thinking, right? That's the jump off. His brain, right, was formulated and modulated. His nervous system, his whole body was formulated to do that
Right.
from birth. So, this is the power of this system. It is literally gifted to for you can so you can see what someone is here to do, right? Um and funny thing is, here's another one before I forget, before I do it slips the old noggin here. What is his Atma Karaka, if you can see,
It is
right? His
Mercury.
Atma Karaka,
Mercury.
that's another mercurial influence, right? Now we're looking at 6 to 7 different mercurial influences on this guy, right? Right. His soul is here to unburden, or to not only unburden but to gift, because a gift is also a what?
Curse.
It's usually tied with a curse, some challenge that you're it's brought with, right? So that you can learn certain lessons, and that mouthpiece can get you in a whole lot of trouble. That's why it's an excellent way for us to look at it, right? Is he right? What's the
Mm.
theme of the show? Is he a troublemaker?
Right.
Right? Instigator, right? Mercury is the instigator, right? You remember you was a kid, right? And the guy was over there talking mess, like he was instigating, like, yeah, he says such and such about you, right? I'm sure that's how these people that are having these issues with him feel,
Right.
right? He's poking fun at me, right? You remember the funny guy in class, and we all got lit up by somebody that was, just playing the dozens, right? Dropping them
Right.
like they hot, right? If you grow up in the inner city, somebody made fun of you somewhere in class at some point through, all the way up to 12th grade, and even maybe beyond, right?
Right.
That's just the guy that does that. That's Mercury's power. This is who he is, right? So not only that, right? He enters into, well, to sidebar, right? And you got to think about childhood. You got to think about how things are. Jupiter is the childhood that he experiences, because it runs immediately after birth from 1974, right, all the way up until what, right around 1990, right? It runs till 1990. So from his perspective, right? Jupiter's in the fifth house. It's debilitated. And think about it from this perspective. Jupiter being debilitated, that Jupiter aspects Mercury, doesn't it? So
Yep.
there's another aspect for you, Queen, that you were asking about, right? Jupiter and Mercury produce a direct aspect to each other, right? So when he was growing up, even though he was in a Jupiter dasha, right, he was still receiving that mercurial influence throughout life. It's never stopped. That's why he can be so natural with it, like it just rolls out of his tongue, right? He's not even thinking about it. He's like, it's just in him. Jupiter
Right.
still had the effects of Mercury throughout his childhood because of the aspect, because of the opposition, and to balance that mercurial and Jupiter and mercurial type differential throughout childhood, right? I'm sure he was the class clown or somebody that was in there, right? Definitely having fun with that mercurial power. You know, Jupiter is the power of is knowledge, right? It is debilitated. It is, right?
Mm-hmm.
And we won't get into the cancellations and all that because that would take us on another tangent. But again, its debilitation can be used, right, to show how life, albeit may not be so uppity up, happy go lucky with the Jupiterian debilitation, but that negative becomes a what?
Positive.
Becomes a positive,
Right.
right?
Right.
So, you know, again, just to show how that works, right? Um, the other thing is that um, during that Jupiter Dasha, right, during his childhood, through his up to almost very young adult or very early, actually teenage years, immediately after, right, it's almost like, you know, something's holding back. The planet that rules the Jupiter debilitation is Saturn, right? It rules it. And it's almost like Saturn is waiting. You know, it's like, yeah, you're gonna go through some of this stuff in childhood, but when you come to me, when you come to the planet that rules that Jupiter, let's see what happens, right? Look, in 1990, he enters into Saturn Dasha. This literally, and take for example, he's only 17 years old. He enters into comedy right at that very age at 17, 1990. I mean, think about the courage and the audacity, right? That someone has to enter into the comedy realm, not acting, right? Not music, not sports, not medicine, not education, comedy. Comedy is hard, folks. It is hard. It is not easy, right? In fact, he got booed, right? According to Wiki, right? First time out, a couple times, didn't start off so well, right? But immediately after, in the same Dasha and Dasha Bhukti from Saturn, right? He started blowing up. That is when I heard of Dave Chappelle. He was on Def Comedy Jam during the Saturn Dasha. Saturn, and here's the funny thing: people say Saturn doesn't give you things. Really, it's in the 10th house of profession. It's in the sign of Gemini, right?
It's natural home.
It's natural. It's natural home, which gives it digbala, which is directional strength. So that means it can take him places.
Mm-hmm.
That's what digbala means. It takes you places, right? Directions, gives you direction, says this is the way to go, and not only does it say this is the way to go, it takes you, it gives you a path, right? So, bar none, right? Saturn Dasha is the major. I mean, from a nobody to a somebody, and I'm not going to say since it was overnight in a way. See, Saturn is supposed to be slow, but what sign is it in? It's in Gemini,
Gemini.
which is what? Quick.
It's quick.
Yeah,
Yeah.
right, right. Mercury is just another name for Quicksilver, right? It's quick, and he's quick with it, right? He's not dull. He's not slow. He's not right buffoonish, right? He's very quick,
Right.
You have to be in comedy. Think about a heckler. Think about somebody that's in the crowd and they're, oh, da, 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 right? Because he even played that role, right, in one of the
Yeah.
movies with Eddie Murphy, right, where he had to deal with it. Remember, right?
Yeah.
He became
Remember.
heckled, right? But nonetheless, that's how comedy is. You have to literally be quick witted, right? So Saturn does give you things. Saturn does aid you and provide immense high levels of stardom, fame, and money. See,
Yeah, it was a
right?
nutty professor. That's right. Yep.
That's right.
Yep.
Right. So you see what I mean? Like Saturn Dasha gave him this. I mean, the almost the whole of Saturn Dasha produced Dave Chappelle.
Right.
I mean, the list of this man's his resume, right? The resume. I mean, being in Nutty Professor, being on Def Comedy Jam, having your own uh, uh,
Special
show, the
show.
Dave. I mean, named after you. That's all Saturn Dasha, right? All of it, all of it. Starring in Pineapple Express. I mean, the man he was for all intents and purposes, a rising star without even, I want to say effort, but it was like the right place at the what
At the right
right
time.
time. That's what destiny is. Yeah.
Right.
And his Atma Karaka, right, is Mercury, which rules Saturn. So it takes him as an individual, to give him the lessons of reaching heights, which rules the 10th house. This is how we begin to map destiny, how we chart what people's lives bring, what people's lives hold, right? Saturn Mercury, look at that, 1993, blows up, even more. Saturn K2, nothing can stop him through this role. And Saturn K2 is a rough period, folks. For many people, most people, it is not easy greasy. Saturn K2 was a breeze to him, right? From our perspective, at least, maybe he was feeling some of those things that Saturn K2 would bring. But Saturn K2, they're conjunct in the chart in Ardra, mind you, which is the antithesis, right? Rahu is the antithesis of K2, so they're both right in a very peculiar place. But nonetheless, he doesn't skip a beat, not a beat, not a slip until, right? Until, and this is the thing, life has its way of showing you certain things. And the famous thing, and what most of us really, as black men and black people and people of color, respect Dave Chappelle for, is standing his ground, right? Holding his own. And the sun in Leo, right? And he is a true sun in Leo, right? In Magha, the king, right? He didn't budge. He didn't give in. He didn't yield to the temptation of the powers that be, right? The infamous dress, right? The infamous put it on, Dave. And here's the crazy thing. If you understand the spiritual side of the planets, there's a mundane side, and the mundane side has a different kind of numerological coincidental way of looking at it. But the spiritual side of it, the number of Mercury is what, my brother?
3.
3. When they asked him to put on the dress, 3 people came to him, right? 3.
I mean,
3, right?
They had the clip queued up.
That that
I'm a
that's
conspiracy theorist to a degree. Like when I connect dots that maybe shouldn't be connected, I don't know. But certain dots, like when I see
My bad. It's the clip, but I didn't mean to play it right there.
Mhm.
Yeah. Want me to play
It's
it?
all good, right? Like I said, yeah, go ahead, play it.
That they put every black man in the movies in a dress at some point in their career. I'll be connecting them down like, why all these brothers gotta wear a dress? This happened to me. I'm doing a movie with Martin.
Yeah.
The movie's going good. So I walk in the trailer. I'm like, man, this must be the wrong trailer because there's a dress in here. They come in. It's the writer comes in. I think he's the writer. He's like, Dave, listen, we got this hilarious scene where Martin's sneaking out of jail. So he disguises you as a prostitute. And he put this dress on. And huh? What? A prostitute? No, I'm not doing that. I don't feel comfortable with that. That should have been in the discussion. What? You don't feel comfortable with it? I mean, it's a hilarious bit. All the greats have done it. So, well, if all the greats have done it, it's kind of hacky, right? You're right. So why don't we just not do it? Because I don't feel comfortable wearing a dress. Oh, come on, Dave. Listen, we got it all set up. We're supposed to shoot. Every minute you waste costs this much money. You know, the pressure comes in. Huh. He said, I'm not wearing no dress, man. I'm funnier than a dress. Just give me something funny to say. I don't need to wear no dress to be funny. What am I, Milton Berle? You know, we're going like this. And then finally he's like, and he leaves. And then, like, the director comes, Dave, it really would be great if you wear the dress. What is wrong? What is this, Brokeback Mountain in here? So then, wear the dress. I don't want to wear the dress. I want to wear this dress. You know what I mean? This is, oh, gosh, this guy's so difficult. They leave. Now the producers comes, come on, David, would be so great. I mean, and then I started thinking about it. All the comics that I've seen, man, you know, strong brothers, why they be putting us in these dresses? But the minute it was clear, I was adamant, I'm not wearing a dress. I'm not wearing the dress. All right, fine. Think of something else. Guy comes back 10 minutes later, the whole new scene. Hot damn, how did you write the scene so fast? You know, it's like, so you gotta take a sting.
There it is, right? See, the Atma Karaka gives you your soul's lessons, right? It says, hey, you got to learn to master this. And it's interesting that the number three, is what Mercury, which is what Mercury is connected to, he passed the test, right? Mercury rules his career, it rules him. Think about it. They probably would have put him on a higher pedestal. Of course, you have to take him down because that's what they usually do if you don't cooperate, as we see, right? But the thing is that he passed the test, right? He learned the lesson that, look, certain things aren't necessary to be funny, to be yourself, to be a leader, to be someone of influence, of impact, right? It's not necessary. Certain things just don't go, right? And when you do them, you sell your what?
So,
The soul, which is the Karaka indicator,
yeah.
right? Deep stuff, right?
Right.
So, Saturn, Rahu, and there's Rahu, good old Rahu. Rahu said, look, right? And I'm sorry, he really said, look, you know, that's it. You know, I'm pulling back. I'm going to retreat. I'm going to go inward to kind of, you know, assess what this whole thing is. Because you got to consider, and here's the thing, just as a sidebar, right? Martin Lawrence is also pretty funny, and I didn't even know that was a movie because the movie that he was in with Martin Lawrence, I remember him being in that movie, right? I remember that. I remember the scene and all of that, so I kind of almost know which one they're talking about. But nonetheless, Martin is not even relevant like he used to be. And guess what? Martin wore the what?
He wore the dress. He did. Yeah.
See? I'm just saying, like, you got to look at things from a spiritual side. Comedy, all the things that we talk about have these spiritual connotations behind the scene. That's why you can't get this in any other podcast, folks. This is a one of a kind podcast. Like my man said, when we really begin to have more momentum, these are classics, right? Because you can see things from a deeper, uh, more insightful perspective, right? Martin wore the dress. Where's Martin now? Right?